All right. Well, Michelle, thanks so much for taking some time to join us today.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, David.
You are a wordsmith, a lover of words. Let me ask you first, have you always loved words? Did you grow up, like, were you a spelling bee champion? Or, I don't know if they have that in the Netherlands. Do they have spelling bees in the Netherlands?
I'm sure they do. I just never really participated in that. But for me, it's not necessarily about the technical elements of words, but much more about the magic that they can do. And for some reason, I've always been a storyteller. And well, of course, there are a number of ways in which you can tell stories, but I just fell in love with words for some reason. I know that my mom, of course, I don't remember it myself, but my mom told me that when I was 2 and whenever I couldn't sleep, I would be telling stories to all my stuffed animals. So it was something that naturally came.
That is so great. Well, we live in a culture where images and video are just so prominent these days.
Yes.
Why do you believe that words are so important when we're building a brand?
Right. Okay. So there are a number of reasons, actually. Well, first of all, I believe that all of these elements in telling your story work well together once you balance them out. So you need images, you need colors, you need all of that. But you could never just, you need the words as well, because, the other day I was at the gym, my new gym. I have a new membership, and I was looking at this image that they have on the wall. And I know that I know that they were trying to send a very empowering message of a woman working out and the trainer, male, helping her. For me, that evoked some feminine and I was like, okay, so that doesn't resonate with me. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with images only. We all have a different way of interpreting them. We create our own stories when we look at images. And when you're building your brand, you want people to know the story you want to tell. Mm-hmm. So to make sure that people grasp the real meaning of your message, you need to explain with your words what it is that you're trying to tell people. And of course, there is, so that's one of the reasons, because it will help you to unambiguously tell your story. Mm-hmm. And the second reason is that I believe that there is so much emphasis on, when it comes to branding, first of all, it starts with, the intangible elements of your brand. So it's all about, your vision for this world, the mission that you have, the values, etc. So those are very intangible. You can't really see it. Then there is the expressive part of your brand. And a lot of entrepreneurs think that it's only about the logo, for example, the coloring, the website. Very, very important, because that's how you show your personality. And as a brand, you have a personality as well. But the thing is, as soon as the words don't match, if you're using language in a way that doesn't match that personality that you want to show, there's a mismatch. And once that happens, it feels a little bit awkward, becomes incongruent. Mm-hmm. So what I see is that a lot of brands tend to, well, not brands necessarily, but just entrepreneurs in general, they tend to want to stick to certain rules when it comes to communication and choosing words, because, well, that's supposed to be professional. And I'm trying to inspire people to find their own way of communicating and their own language. And like, you have colors and you have a logo and you have a personality in photography and in coloring. You have that in language as well. It's a way to show your personality. And that's different levels of using words and language. Yes.
It's funny you talk about the language, and at a gym, I belong to a gym here in the United States. It's called Planet Fitness. It's a lower cost gym, and it's seen as like a no criticism environment, no judgment zone. Like, they've got all this purple and yellow colors. It's no judgment zone, all this kind of stuff. And once a month they have, and they're advertising this up on TVs, a Monday night pizza night. A pizza night at a gym once a month. What the heck? Like, it makes no sense. And there are Tootsie Rolls out on the counter. Like, as you check in, Tootsie Rolls are these little chocolate, candies. Yeah. Anyway, what the heck? And so that's a key. Talk about not your language. That's just straight up not matching what your mission is. But maybe it's actually genius because they're making you fatter. That's going to cause you to want to keep coming back. So maybe it's actually a genius idea, and I'm the one that's slow on the uptake there. I do notice that you personally, you're just a little crazy. Like, I mean, I'm looking at your website, your hair's going everywhere, which your hair is beautiful, but it's just kind of very crazy. You got this big smile, you got tattoos, you know, it's rebelicious. You're the language, you're dropping F-bombs. Like that's part of your brand, you know? And I think what's interesting of what you're saying is that a lot of us want to play it safe to go, okay, I don't want to offend anybody. I want to kind of stay in my lane. I want to make sure, but yet you're telling people, no, you got to find your own personality. That doesn't mean you have to be crazy, but it's got to match whatever it is you're trying to do. And that's the case. I'm assuming that's the case, you know, not just for entrepreneurs, but we have a lot of moms who listen, you know, they're maybe organizing moms clubs, book clubs, PTA, all of these activities. Language is important in rallying people for all of those things too,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes, absolutely. See, the thing is, what I believe, and whether that's in work or in your private life, it doesn't really matter. But one of the things that makes life interesting is people and the people that you hang out with. So instead of trying to adjust to, you know, your personality to just try to fit in, I always say, you know, just be yourself, not just be yourself and then some. And, you know, make sure that you express yourself in a way that will attract the people that are a match with who you are. So again, that if there's women, mothers, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or not. You want to attract people that you feel you have a click with, that you feel, you know, comfortable with. And like you said, there's so many people playing safe and trying to adjust and fit into society. And that way you kind of ignore a part of you that just wants to play and be free. And for me as an entrepreneur, because I value connecting with people so much and I love hanging out with people, I want those people to match my personality. Otherwise that will happen, because my business is a big part of my life. So, you know, I think I have a say in it. So I'd rather work with the people. I'd rather work with the people that I have a connection with, that I can just be myself around. And I also believe that way you filter out the people that don't really match through your language. I know, I'm quite outspoken. I admit that. I deliberately do that because I know that will help people to get out of that comfort zone as well.
Right. And so people also you know, choose like, oh yeah, I want to connect with her, or I don't want to connect with her. I've also found that I'll go into a particular, I have a marketing business myself. So I'll go into a client that's more of a corporate client, and I'll feel myself being kind of stiff because I'm trying to make sure that I'm playing the right role. And yet my contact at that company is like, why are you so stiff every time you come in here? Like, well, you're not the person that you are on the phone. You know, like we're playful, we're like having fun, joking around, you know, and then all of a sudden you come in here, and I think it's because I want to make sure I don't, you know, say something inappropriate. Not that I'm going to say something wrong, but I just am in my head trying to go, okay, I got to fit into that role. And I don't enjoy it. Like that's not fun for me to be in that stiff environment. I'm not being the person who is kind of just who I am. So I love what you're saying. It's got to match. Talk to me about the influence, the ways that words are influencing us on a daily basis that we may not even realize.
Yeah, massively. To put it into one word, our words are definitely influencing us massively, because if you just think of the words that you use yourself, a lot of the times we use words to define ourselves, to create an identity around ourselves. And just listening to other people and the way they use language says a lot about how they see themselves. So those words they impact the success that we can have in this life. And one of the key words, I believe, is the word are, just to be, basically, just the verb that. So if I would say I'm a copywriter, which I used to say before when I was still a copywriter, I would define myself that way. That was the label, the box that I put myself in. And that way I limited myself into I just stick to that box.
Right.
As soon as people challenged me, or I actually became a member of the Professional Speakers Academy, realized that it was not about the writing, it was about the words and how words inspire. And that's a little bit more abstract, but I don't just have to use the words in writing, I can use words on stage as well to inspire people. So I broke free from the label copywriter and realized it was about so much more than that. So in daily life, to answer your question, in daily life, we use words constantly to label ourselves. And if you become aware of how you label yourself at this moment, so instead of saying, this is not who I am, maybe you want to take another look at that phrase and maybe question why that would not be who you are, and maybe challenge yourself a little bit more. Just the word is, this is not, or this is who I am. What does it mean? Maybe there's more possible right now. And we use that word throughout the entire day.
What are some examples of ways that people are defining themselves with words that maybe are limiting them?
Well, the example I just used, so this is not who I am, or a friend of mine, just to give an example, she's diagnosed with ADHD. Especially nowadays, you hear a lot of kids, they have autism, etc. So they're put in a box. And because of that diagnosis, they get that label. And that would explain why they can or can't do certain things, or they might not be good at, structuring, or they need the structure because otherwise they'll just go mental, whatever. The thing is that is only a label. It is only a label. It doesn't define you, who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. So labeling yourself according to a diagnosis, maybe a certain profession, in a certain job position, as a wife, a certain role that you have, that says nothing about who you really are as a person. So even though it helps, the labels help for people to understand how they need to see you. Mm-hmm. I get that. We need structures, we need certain labels because it helps us to create an understanding of the world, obviously. But it also limits us if we tend to identify with those labels too much on a daily basis. I am not just someone's wife, for example, or a friend. I am me. I have certain beliefs and values, and even those values and those beliefs are, of course, not only mine. I have taken them in throughout the years, and made them my own. But yeah.
So how would you describe yourself? Like what are the words that impact you on a daily basis? Like what are the words that are flowing through your mind? And then what are the words that come out of your mouth? You're traveling right now, you're meeting people, what do you do? Who are you? Tell me. And I think those are two different things. One is the words that are in our mind, and then two are the words that come out of our mouth. They're linked, but they could be separate.
Yeah. So I will tell myself in front of the mirror that I'm a freaking power bitch. Because those are the words that empower me and that get me into a playful mode. If I would meet someone now and introduce myself, or people ask me what I do, I would say I'm a word wizard. Brand rebel, and those are words that are generally, they don't categorize me necessarily because they will raise questions. They'll be like, huh? Say what? Yeah, exactly. And that invites a new conversation. So that basically inspires people to ask more questions. So what do you mean with that? And that opens up a new territory for us to explore together, because it gives me an opportunity to share what I believe in and what I help people with. So that's why usually what I advise people to do is actually what I've, one of the steps in my ebook, just to name it, is to, have some kind of label so that people understand, okay, so you're a graphic designer or you're a coach, whatever, but also come up with an analogy, something fun, something that is out of the box, something else, something different, so that it will actually increase people's understanding of what you do and raise questions. You want people to be like, what do you mean with that? Because that it opens up the conversation.
And that's true whether you own your own business or not, because
Absolutely.
For most of us, we're excited about something in the world. We're excited about whether it's our families or a business or a job, or even if we're passionate about a band or something. Like just that little tweak is what you're saying. I love that word wizard or brand rebel. If I met you, I would be like, yeah, tell me more. Tell me more. What does that mean? Even when you tell me, what do you mean by brand rebel? That's obviously your business. But when you say that, because I'm the person, I just met you. What do you mean brand rebel?
Right. So generally, there is a story behind it. I will get to that in a little bit. But what I mean with being a rebel is not about being stubborn or not about going against society and all its rules. It's not about that. It's about finding your own path. It's finding your own way. So it's autonomy, basically. It's all about finding that path that defines you, that fits with you, the way that you want to live your life. So, and of course, because I work with entrepreneurs, it is about the brand, but it might just as well, and the process is the same, it could be your personal brand. So we're all basically personal brands all the time, whether we are entrepreneurs or not. It doesn't really matter. And I would like to inspire people to follow their own path a little bit more. And that's why instead of just being rebellious, I call it rebelicious, because it has a delicious twist.
It's so funny because you do not come off like a rebel at all. I mean, a little bit, but you're just so playful and fun. And I love that. Did you grow up not being a rebel? Like, were you more of a straight-laced kind of conservative background, and this kind of is a way for you to blossom, or how did that play out for you?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's actually what came up. One of the reasons I chose this name is because so I grew up with my mother and my sister. My parents got divorced when I was 9. And a couple of years after, my mom, who was in her early 30s, she was looking for meaning, like we all are. I mean, it's just part of, being an adult. And she found meaning in what I'd like to refer to as a cult. Now, I have nothing against people believing or whatsoever, but this was a quite dogmatic way of living life. And they basically told us in the church, I mean, I was 11, so I joined my mom because everything that my mom did was the truth at that point. Of course, I was a young girl. And we slowly got sucked into that life in that cult. All my friends in school were worldly. They were not really to be considered my real friends. We could not have a television. Everything was immoral on TV. There was a lot of restrictions when it came to just a pretty regular lifestyle. And I realized at some point they were very judgmental. I know that within Christian belief and faith, it is not about judging at all. It's all about love. And that is something that they didn't practice. I didn't experience it that way. Let me put it that way. And once I grew up, and I saw all those friends that were supposed to be, well, according to them, immoral or worldly. And I thought that they were just awesome people. And I was like, how can we judge them for not being good people just because that they don't go to that church? I realized that there was more out there. And at 16, it wasn't about being a rebel, but I just decided at some point that I didn't want to go to that church anymore. But the church, as soon as someone had their own opinion that went against their beliefs, then you were considered a rebel. And I decided I'd rather be a rebel, living life my way according to my values, even though I was only 16, and I knew that those were not my values. Mm-hmm. And that's what I said. So there is a link with how they considered me a rebel at the time, and me now making it rebelicious. Yeah.
How did that play out for you and your mom and your sister, like in your relationship?
Yeah, it was pretty hectic, to be honest. At the beginning, it was really hard for my sister because, well, she was a couple of years younger and she was in the middle of that. Me and my mom just not getting along at that point. My mom, of course, well, she didn't really know how to handle it either. She did the best that she could. I will give her that, absolutely. But she was very influenced by the pastor in that church at that time, and he managed to persuade her to manipulate the situation in a little bit, and that ended up with me being kicked out, basically. So I ended up living on just somewhere else. I found a room just with someone else. So that was the consequence, and
So you literally were kicked out of your home at 16 because
yeah,
of religious issues.
yeah. I just turned 17. I was 17 at the time. So yeah, yes.
Wow. So you've lived on your own since you're 17.
Yeah. I was still in my exam year for high school. So that didn't play out right because I had to make money to pay for rent. I did get some support from my parents, my father as well, who lived 2 hours away, so I couldn't move in with him. And I got some support from my mom because we never fell out or something. I mean, we were still in touch. It was actually, we were making it work. And it was just, you get into some kind of survival mode. You just do whatever you have to.
Yeah. It's amazing how those experiences, are so, like, you're saying it with a smile, but that's just so painful. Like, it's just so painful to go through, that type of rejection, in our lives.
Yeah.
And it seems like, my guess is you have just a soft heart for those who are kind of rebels, or those who are outside of the system, so to speak.
Yeah. The status quo.
Yeah. I mean, have you've felt that as you continued to grow and get older in life?
What I've always felt is that I've always followed my own path. I've always had opinions about certain topics that were not very mainstream. I've never really felt like an outsider at all, just me just doing my thing. I've never felt, I did feel judged as soon as I left that cult. That I did feel. I mean, I was basically shunned because I was, of course, now the rebel, and people they were judging me. I mean, they told my mom that I probably end up knocked up after 3 months, and within 3 months. And I was 17. I mean, I was actually quite, I was just a bit of a good girl, actually. So that was, that really, I was like, well, how can you know that that's going to happen anyway? But it didn't. You get into survival mode, and I kept just following my own path and doing my thing. But I realized only later on in my life that I'd been playing safe after all. After that, because of that experience, because you get judged and rejected, and it's better to not speak up too much, because if you speak up and you say what you want and you find your own way, well, there's a chance of getting rejected massively. So it did impact me. But I guess that especially after I was 27 when my dad got sick, that changed a lot of things around for me, because I realized that I was blocking myself. I was living a very average life. And I decided to become an entrepreneur then. And that kind of evolved during the years. And a couple of years ago, I decided to make a massive change. I wanted a different business model, etc. And that's when I started speaking on stage, etc. And that challenged me big time, because I had to start. Before that, with the copywriting business, I was telling other people's stories. And now all of a sudden, because I was going to be on stage, I was going to share my story. And I had to deep dive into that story again, and the impact that it had. And I had to take a close look at myself, and that brought up a lot of emotions. Yeah, the processing happened then.
Yeah, that is so amazing. So it's like you're constantly refining how you see yourself, is what I'm hearing was happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a constant process. And I think that being, making the best out of life and out of yourself means reflecting on who you are, and not just defining yourself based on the past experiences, but also, seeing how you can learn from that and choosing who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's really important. I don't think that we're just a collection of experiences. We can also choose.
Mm-hmm.
That's all about leadership, if you ask me.
Mm. I have an online course called Launch Your Life. And in this last week, I was teaching in a module all about the path, the trajectory of our path of our life.
Yeah.
And that so many of us are on the path of our parents, that they put us on. And it's not a bad thing, like, because we all grew up. It's like you said, you were, 11, you were just following your mom because,
Yeah.
you assume she's got your best interest in mind. And in reality, she was doing the best she could with the resources she had in that moment. And she's loving you and wanting to do the best for you. But as we continue to grow up, some of us are inadvertently at 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, still on the path of our parents,
Yeah.
or the path of a partner, a life partner, where it's like, they've chosen, like, this is what you should do. And it's like, what is it? Asking that question over and over again. What do I want? What do
Yes.
I want?
Yeah.
I as a short story, when I was a kid, I grew up in a very conservative home as well. I wouldn't consider it a cult, but it definitely was pretty limiting in terms of the thought process. And my parents are very, let's see, how would I say it? I can't think of the word at the moment. Help me with the word, Michelle. Let me describe the word. Utilitarian would be the right word.
Yeah.
Pragmatic.
Yeah.
And so a sense of personal expression or style isn't necessarily a high value in my family. And so I remember as a kid, and I've written about this before. My dad probably doesn't even remember this. I remember we were going out and I said, hold on just a second. And I went back to get a pair of sunglasses. And this was the 80s. They were like red and had this crazy stripe on them and had this red like chain thing that went behind your head, and I'm like in probably middle school. And I remember him abruptly saying, are you getting them because you really need them? Or, and the assumption was, or you just trying to look cool.
Yeah.
And that left a mark inside of me, even as a middle school. And my kids are 16 and 19. I'm sure I'm leaving marks all over them. So, to go, there's no need to express yourself. There's no need to have something just to enjoy it, just for personal expression. And that has been a lifetime journey for me of going, how do I express myself in ways that are both have a freedom and a responsibility. So if I just have freedom, then I can oftentimes make choices that are like not helpful to others around me. But if I'm only focusing on responsibility, then I don't really have that freedom that comes with self-expression. So
it's a constant balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I love your self-expression. It's definitely loud and clear. It's beautiful. It's so fun. Yeah. Rebelicious. Okay. So if I'm going to start a new venture, no matter what kind of venture that is, whether it's a business, a group, club, cult, if I'm starting a new cult, no, I'm kidding. How should I go about choosing the words that will describe what I want to do? Like, what would that process be?
Right. So I always take people through a quite clear step-by-step process, because it all starts with having a very clear vision. That's the very first step. You need to know where you're going. You need to know the direction you're going to, whether that is for a book club or your personal life or for a business. It doesn't matter. You need a vision. And I really believe in the power of words again when it comes to that vision. I do have to say that the process and how you go about that is different for your personal life vision or for your business. But by putting it into words and asking the right questions and then putting it into words, you can actually feel how the words are going to guide you there. Because just think about it, when you put something into words and you'll see the word out on you've written it down, you're looking at it and you're like, doesn't feel right, that's not my word. So you know that you need something else. And I just use tools like thesaurus.com or whatever to find different words that would have a better fit. But for me, the words are a tool as well. So they definitely give me more insight in, oh yeah, so this is what I want and that is what I want, because I can create pictures. People generally think in pictures. But through the wording, I can create the pictures in my mind already of how I would like the world to look like, or my personal life, what I want for my personal life. And the more specific you are, and the more specific you describe that, the clearer the vision you have. And it becomes, now, in all honesty, for a personal vision, I would write a story and really get to, be specific about, okay, so where do you want to live? I mean, what should that look like? What kind of view do you want to have, for example? And where do you want to go on a holiday? I don't know. For a business vision, if you really have an outcome for that business, you want to eventually tone it down to one sentence, because you want that vision to be marked in your own brain as well as in your staff's brain. And everybody should have that same idea, that same vision, and should be able to just, voice it if necessary. So, yeah.
I was watching a video that you put out some time ago where you talked about the power of adjectives and the power of describing. You used the example of a table. So let's just say you're selling a table. So if I doubt many people who are listening are selling tables unless they're selling an extra one on Craigslist or something on the website. That's a used website here in the United States. I don't know. Do you guys have Craigslist there?
We actually have our own versions of it.
Bob's List.
Like yeah, Mark Blatz.
There you go. So, so if I'm talking about a table, like let's just go with this example, just to give the idea for a moment. If I'm selling a table, tell me about all the different types of tables that would be attractive to a different audience.
Yeah. So, I'm just trying to picture it, and if I want to create a picture of that table, I need a number of variables that need to be defined. So think of size, think of height, think of the shape of it. Those are all elements that you could describe in words already that will help me create an image in my mind. So when it comes to something tangible like a table, obviously there'll be a picture on Craigslist. But if you don't have a picture, you want the words to match. Now, it's not just that, because like you said, the adjectives have a massive impact. I mean, is it going to be a really robust table? Or is it going to be a refined table, very elegant, a nice side table perhaps? So that's another word, the category. What kind of category would it fit in? And in that video you're referring to, I was specifically talking about the adjectives to describe the style. And then there's, of course, colors. So anything that relates to the visual description of that table, whether it's color, shape, size, measurements, but the style as well, that will define if people are going to buy it or not. And having worked in fashion and lifestyle for a long time, interior design as well, I would always pay attention to those details. And of course, there are some of the factual information, size and so on, but the adjectives give they give a little bit of the magic to it.
And it's all painting a picture. I love how you said that. Basically, the words are painting a picture in our mind.
Yeah, and the way that you can also do that with other something else than just an object is to use all the 5 senses. So the better you incorporate sensory experiences in language, you can actually put people in even an imaginative situation. You can take them somewhere. You can actually, it's like a dream that you put them in through words. And it's wonderful what words can do. They can actually take you to a different part of your brain so that you start feeling it instead of just reading it. if you do that correctly. Yeah.
So I know you've got an ebook available to us. Tell us more about the name of that and where we can get that.
Right. So it's called What's Your Point, Dude? And the point is an acronym, actually. It's all about how you get your point across. Be very clear on your message. You can find it on my website, beabrandrebel.com. There is an English version. At the moment, I know that I shouldn't be saying that, but they're repairing it. There were some issues with my website, but if I'm not mistaken, you can still just click the button and get the copy in your mailbox. And you will automatically then get, of course, the copy as well as a few videos to help you write your own point so that you can get your point across.
Now, on your website in the upper right, you can click on the a flag.
Yeah.
That changes the language to English. I was watching one of your videos and it started out in English and then you switched to a different language and I started feeling like, wait, am I having a stroke right now? What's going on? Am I having a stroke? I thought she was in, and you speak in both languages. You just go back and forth. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, to be honest, I've ever since I was 13, I was one of the first in my country to do a bilingual education. It was a very new thing. And right now it's a little bit more mainstream, but at that time it was just an experiment of allowing kids to just get like 50% of all subjects in English. So half of my school time was all speaking English. So that was, I'm very happy that I was one of the first to do that and get that opportunity. So it's a natural thing for me, basically.
That's great. And if there is a brand, someone who's listening who owns a company or works with a company in terms of their marketing department, and they want to work with you, I'm assuming you'll work with people no matter where they are in the globe. Is that true?
Well, that is it's getting more and more true. I've been working with some people in Scotland and England, of course in the Netherlands, and I've just been to Florida to speak on stage in front of number of 120 people, and I know that there's going to be people I'll be working with in the future as well. So generally a one-to-one with me, really doing the brand strategy and so on, well, that would take up a lot of time. But I'm currently working on, I already have an international course that's available in English. So that's the way that I can scale up my time and allow people everywhere in the world to work with me. So that's through my online academy. Well, I don't have to explain you have that as well, of course. Yeah.
That's great. Well, we'll make sure. What's the name of that, just so people have it in their mind?
Yeah, so that would be the course that I have online right now is the how to create compelling content for your brand.
Great.
And so that it would be, I've just launched it. We're updating the sales page, and it's going to be online really soon. Beabrandrebel.com. That's basically where you can find anything. And that's it. And it's available in English. And
great. So we'll link to that in the show notes and make sure that people have access to that and the ebook. So Michelle, thank you so much for not only talking about words, but part of your story and how that's impacted the way that you see yourself. And I think there's so much that we can learn from that. So thank you.
Thank you. I was very honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.